I have a way to start this podcast in my head, and that's just going to be put on pause temporarily for me to get this thing out that I just said before we went live, which is I believe I make better tea than you do.
Not true.
Every time we do this podcast, we always have a cup of tea. Within that tea can be a range of lemon and honey and whatever different tea we decide to swig on that particular podcast.
Normally oregano or wild thyme.
Correct. So right now we have an herbal tea. It's red.
Looks like red wine. If I spill it, I mean, don't spill it on yourself.
It's definitely a sangria-esque, but let me explain to you why I think I make better tea than you, and this will springboard us into our topic.
Okay.
So I start by putting honey in the bottom of the glass while the water is getting hot, okay? Then what I do is when the water is hot and the kettle pops up, I pour the water in first, and just a little bit, and I dilute the honey.
Dilute
The honey.
Okay.
Then I slice a little round piece of lemon and I put it in there. And I take the spoon and I muddle the lemon in there.
Muddle.
Then I put the tea bag in, wrap it around the handle so it doesn't fall off or get wet. And then I finish the rest of the water up to, a half inch away from the lip of the cup. That incorporates all of those additional flavors into whatever flavor of tea we have. I know how you do your tea, and it is in no way similar to how I do it. So please explain how you make the tea that you enjoy, but that I think is maybe lacking a little effort on your part.
Let me ask you this first. Are you saying that you make tea the right way, or it's just your way?
I think everybody who just heard me explain how I make tea would say that's emphatically the right way to do it now, because I'm dispersing even levels of flavor throughout all of it so that every sip is the same. I know what you do is you put the honey in.
No. I will tell my story.
Yeah, go for it.
I will tell my
Go for
story.
it. Yeah, please.
So I hit the electric kettle to be on.
Correct.
Okay.
That's how we boil tea, not in the microwave, not on an old school kettle burner. We have an electric kettle.
Okay. So then I go get the cups, go get the tea, go get a lemon, and go get honey. Now, I want to say this. I slice the lemon first. Okay.
Means nothing, but okay, I love it.
I slice the lemon first. And lemon is strong. A whole slice of lemon in a cup of tea is strong.
Well, what's the width?
Let me finish.
What's the width of the slice?
What is that width?
Quarter inch?
Maybe a quarter inch.
Got it.
Okay. Then I drop it first into the bottom of the cup.
That sounds right.
Then I take the honey.
Okay.
And I cover the lemon with honey.
Sure.
Okay. Now, the reason I do that is because I love the idea of pouring the water onto the honey, which makes the honey, of course, break up and dissolve super fast through the lemon. It diffuses through the lemon and permeates the rest of the tea.
I don't know that science agrees with that.
And then I stick the bag on. Okay,
Got
now,
it.
Here's the thing. The special part of what I do.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Here comes the salesmanship element of how Deb makes tea. Deb, please, what is the special part of your tea making process?
You're killing me.
Because this is the biggest line of bull I have ever heard about to be spewed out of your mouth. She knows it. She is a giggle factory because she knows what she's about to say is a total freaking lie. But here we go. You can lie to me. Do not lie to this audience.
It's the truth.
Okay, here we go.
I swear.
Can't wait. Cannot wait for this.
I hate it when I laugh like that and I can't get a grip. Okay. Then, because I know we're going to do the podcast, right?
Did you give a little kiss to each cup?
I give a little wave over each cup and send good blessings inside.
I told you it was going to be a line. I told you it was going to be worth it.
I say a little prayer that we will.
Yep. Big tea prayers before every podcast.
Oh my God.
This was so much better than what I could have planned. Oh my gosh. So needless to say, my tea is
So-
so much better than Deb's, especially because she has to lie about hers to make it sound good. I think what happens, and I'm not even kidding you, the honey doesn't dilute as much as you would think without it being stirred.
Yeah.
It kind of sits there. So when I finish a glass of Deb's prayer tea,
Let's call it that from now on.
when I finish a glass of Deb's wisdom prayer tea,
And
the-
blessing, wisdom.
the last like quarter of it is hyper sweet because that honey didn't get to actually mix through.
Okay, then let's compromise because sometimes I think yours is a little lemony and it gets me. I mean, and I love lemon. But if you muddled just the tea, like stirred it up, which isn't muddling, just stirred it up to make sure it dissolved, then dropped your lemon in, I might go with you that it's right tea, but without a prayer attached.
Yeah. Okay. I will start saying blessings on this too.
Okay.
So talking about tea, I wanted to start off in the Far East because I wanted to talk about Japan. Do you have any desires to ever go to Japan?
Oh, good sushi, right?
Home of it.
Yeah.
I don't know that they do all you can eat like here in Northern Nevada, but I'm sure it's decent over there.
I know. Why do we do all you can eat?
Because we're landlocked and that's how we get
No.
people in.
It's the weirdest thing, but when people come here, they love it, right?
Well, yeah, because it's
just-
$25 all you can eat sushi.
Sit and eat it all day
and you
long.
devour 40 rolls and you wonder why you feel like the biggest swollenest piece of crap afterwards.
So Japan, is Japan on my list? The fact that I'm taking this long probably says no, but I think, no, I think Japan, I think it's supposed to be beautiful. I love that Japan is really different, right?
Yep.
I mean, the only thing that I think about Japan that would make me not nervous is like, there is no way I can even kind of pretend that language.
Oh, of course
I mean,
not.
it's not parlez-vous français, right? I mean, this is like hard.
Correct. So my question in asking that is they just opened Universal. Well, there's two pieces of news that came out of Japan this week. The first one is they are having the Olympics, which they put on hold last year for this year. And what they said is they will not allow anybody outside of Japan to attend the games. So,
Probably smart. They're an island. Probably smart.
and then they just opened, Universal Studios just opened Super Nintendo World. I know that you're not a theme park gal,
Yeah.
as we've established. So let me have two questions for you.
Yeah.
Is there any type of theme park? Like you could make anything up, like a Real Housewives theme park where you can ride a roller coaster and instead of going down the waterfall, someone throws wine in your face. Is there any type of niche genre thing that speaks to you that you'd be like, I would be interested in going to that? Because I think a Super Nintendo World would be awesome, like nostalgia overload.
Well, okay. I want to the what is the name of it?
I don't know.
Universal Studios.
Correct?
I can remember when we went. Was it Disneyland or Disney World?
Universal Studios, I believe when we went would have been Orlando, so it would have been Disney World.
I liked Universal Studios better than I liked Disney World. And the reason, but you were 14, I
Yep.
mean, so that makes a difference. You weren't like a little guy. I felt like I did like the theme of the rides because they all have a theme.
Did they feel more adult to you?
They felt more adult to me. And a lot of them felt like, oh, I would stand in line for that again. And the things, I will say, the things that, like, I like to be a little scared, not
Totally.
horribly scared, but, not scared like I'm going to lose a limb, but scared like, oof,
For
you
sure.
know? And I felt like those were those kind of rides.
That those spoke more to the adults as opposed to the kids stuff that Disney is more centric about.
Right. So if Nintendo World, for instance, like if I really think I'm going to get, I don't know, bopped or crushed by some character, though I know that's not going to happen, it's going to elicit a little fear in me, I might like it.
I don't think there's any threat of being harmed in Nintendo World.
You know what I mean, though.
I think it's more like immersive to, hey, we get to go into Mario's fictitious world and be a part of it, just kind of like what Disney's doing with Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. So then the other thing, which we mentioned, was the Olympics. You are not the biggest sports gal I know. We don't have...
Are you referring to my size?
Okay, clearly not. We don't have the long running segment of Deb and Kev Sports Minute for a reason.
We don't.
But do you track the Olympics when they happen? Are you cognizant of it? / is there a piece of you that would be interested in ever attending the Olympic Games?
So let it be said, there are two sports, and this is probably from my dating life and from my child. Soccer and basketball, which I thoroughly enjoy both of those things.
Got it.
I love going to a baseball game, but it can be slow and that can kill me. Right?
For sure.
So if it's a cool park and if it's a cool team and there's good food and I'm with fun people, baseball's fine, right? Probably don't care about football a lot.
But you would say baseball is more background noise to the people you're with.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
So, but I mean, as far as the Olympics go, I do think this thing happens. I hope it happens for everybody, where it's this moment in time, like a week or 10 days or whatever it is, that you go, I do care about ice skating and I do care about track. And, I do care about all those things.
Nationalism.
Right, exactly. So
the good kind.
Yes. Like I love March Madness.
Right.
I love it. The Gonzaga is rated number 1, maybe. Are they rated number 1?
Such a weird poll for you to cheer for a team that none of us have an attachment to.
I know. Well, but I grew up in Washington. Gonzaga's in Washington. And then you just start getting territorial with it.
It's not even anywhere near where you grew up,
Just
though.
saying. They've tried so hard for so long.
But I'm proud that you know that Gonzaga is the number 1 seed. Kudos to you. Like I said, not a big sports gal, but you know enough.
But I know enough. So the Olympics, here's the thing. I think I would have loved to have gone to the Olympics when I was younger.
Sure.
Okay. And I think it would have been an incredible experience, like in your 20s or, whatever, with all your friends. The problem now is, I just really, the big crowd thing, the standing in line thing, it's just exhausting for me. And am I always going to get really good seats? Because when we see it at home, it's pretty good.
True. The best seat in the house is typically on your couch.
Right. So, yes, I have an interest in the Olympics. Do I care to go personally? Probably not. And just for the obvious reasons.
So we can entice Deb to Tokyo without the Olympics.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Without Super Nintendo World.
Oh, yeah.
As long as they make delicious prayer blessing tea.
And good sushi.
Let's start that podcast.
Okay.
Welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. One is a Harvard Business School alum. The other is her son, discussing business, pop culture, family, and everything in between. Now, here are your hosts, Deb and Kev.
Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. Sitting right there, she is the wolf in sheep's clothing. It's my mom, Deb.
Oh, my God. I am Deb.
And I'm her counterpart, a snake in the grass myself. I'm Kev, and this is our podcast. On today's show, Deb is going to talk about arguably the most relatable topic she's ever tackled in her business segment, which is working with people you just don't like. We also have a brand new round of questions for Dear Debbie. And we will end the show with that big payoff that you all actually want, which is finding out what we are thankful for and what's for dinner. But first, I want to talk about that soon-to-be high school graduate who went viral for the open letter he wrote to his would-be employers. If you haven't heard about this story, if you haven't seen it, this kid's name is Ryan Lowry. He's from Leesburg, Virginia. He's 20 years old. He's about to graduate high school. Now, he has, I think, what would be diagnosed as severe autism, but he is one of those people who has autism. He can hyper focus on certain elements of his life.
So super high performing in some areas.
Totally. And pushed on by his brother said, I think the best thing that you can do is kind of just acknowledge it and start putting resumes out there. And in the most sincere, genuine of ways, he hand wrote a letter to all of his future would-be employers and just addressed it head on. And he put it on LinkedIn because it's the professional's social media website. And I want to say within a couple of days, over 7 million accounts shared that letter. Yep. The major news affiliates picked it up. They interviewed him. They interviewed the family. The mother was brought to tears because I don't think she ever thought anything like this was going to be able to happen for her son. He is trying to pursue a career in animation or IT. And within the week, he had dozens of companies who had responded to him and reached out and were going to offer him a position that would require a mentor, which he himself asked for.
The beautiful part of it was he was so articulate with what he needs, right? And he said, I need a mentor to kind of guide me. It's obviously, I think, the social part of it that is the harder part of his life a little bit. And so I need a mentor. And what it was so darling in it, he said, because I need you to explain it to me and show it to me. But once I get it, I get it. Yep. I mean, that line alone, once I get it, is the dream of every employer in the world.
Totally.
Right. And it was like, get this kid a job in a good company with great benefits and somebody take him under their wing. It is the right thing to do. And for other kids like him as well.
It is amazing how far we have come as a civilization to where we can look at somebody who clearly has a mental deficiency as it relates to what we consider normal, whatever normal is.
Is it mental? I think emotional. I don't know.
And say, we are now going to help him by putting him in the exact right position for him to be successful. And whether it's IT, whether it's animation, whether he has a mentor for the entirety of his career, or whether he's able to, fly solo at some point, we are better when we lift each other up as a society. And to see something like this get the type of attention that it clearly deserves is just one of those warm, fuzzy things. And, if we had IT on this podcast, if we needed an animator, which actually we could, and I thought that I could teach him and pay him, even though we do make millions of podcast dollars, I would have been one of the first people to reach out to him, because it's like the greatest gift in the world to be able to have somebody who's so clearly transparent with what they need and will, I guarantee you, be there for forever.
Oh, he ends up being the bigger gift for whoever gets him, for sure. I do think, I don't know anything about autism, so if people do, they're free to DM me at Debs and tell me that I'm wrong, right or wrong. But I'm just going to say with Ryan and the way he was presented, it really just felt to me like his wiring is different than mine. And he got a whole bunch of something that I didn't get. And in a really good way, because they said he's, fairly brilliant in technology, math, and music, right? Which, who wouldn't love that, right?
I've complained about this on this podcast about not being good musically.
Call me mediocre or lacking,
right?
And all of those things.
Same.
And, and that's where his gifts, they went to that area. And, he's 18 years old.
20.
Oh, 20. Okay. So if you think about 20 years ago, when his parents got that original diagnosis, or 18 years ago, whenever they got it, how remarkable. Things haven't just changed in his lifetime. They've changed in his school time, in his education time. So we are so desperate for good news. And this is the kind of good news we love. And he was adorable and it was heartwarming. But the thing that really brought me to it was his mother said, we are so unbelievably grateful. We had no idea. And then as she was kind of crying, which this is the thing that every mother in the world wants. She said, I just want him to be able to grow up and forge his own way and be on his own and live a happy life.
So this is a little out of order. Typically we ask questions like this after Deb's business segment, but this toes the line of being a great story in general, but also overlapping in the business world. If you were going to be Ryan's employer and you knew he had needs that needed to be met other than a traditional employee, how would you go about ushering that in?
So I think the first part is talking to Ryan.
Yep.
And, if there are any things, like I know some kids with autism, like loud noises are really disruptive to them, kind of rattles them. So I would say, like, Ryan, tell me what we need to know. Tell me the things that are, everybody in the world has triggers. What are yours, right?
Right.
And see if we could solve those kind of things for him, because you want to give him the optimum work environment for success, right? And without it seeming favoritism, that kind of thing. So if he said somebody laughing too loud or, that just rattles the heck out of me, then I might say something like, well, do you prefer to be in a place like a room by yourself, or would it work if you had headphones on with music? Can you still, what can we do? Because if he says, I want to be out with everybody else, but we have a noisy out there space,
Sure.
right?
The communal space is too much for him to process.
Right. Then you want to be able to find that other method, right? And so I also think it's sort of like, I mean, I think it's everything like, and I think we all have these just to a lesser degree, like, you know, here's where you'll be sitting. Is it going to bother you if somebody comes up from behind you? You know, will that be startling? You know, whatever. I just think there's all sorts of things like that. And then I think Ryan knows the way he learns. I mean, that was clear from his letter.
Sure.
That he has already figured that out. And so, which I think, I had some interviews this week, which you were listening to from the Cayman Islands.
Amazing accents. I love those
God.
accents.
Did they make you happy all day long? And one of the things that I think I asked each of them, how do you best learn? And I explained, like, I mean, I love to read, but if you're talking about, I mean, something a little bit boring, you know, like some kind of weird manual.
I don't like the manuals, Deb. I can't read it good.
I know they were more darling than you.
Oh, I mean,
so cute.
I had headphones
Joy.
on and I could hear them, and I was like, I'm gonna go work and live in the Caymans now.
Yeah, they were darling. But I think it's like if we know how we learn, right? I learn best from somebody telling me and then showing me, and then having the reference manual as a reference.
Sure.
Right? That's how I learn. And so I do think he understands that about himself. So I think it's part of getting the physical community ready for him, meaning just the functioning of his area. And then I think it's important too that his community there understands, like, you know, does it feel bad to him if 5 people encroach on him?
Right.
You know, things like that. And again, I think we all have that a little bit. We just don't.
I was going to say, isn't the bigger takeaway from this that clearly he suffers from issues that don't relate to you and I. So we are going to treat him in a way that's best for him to thrive. Isn't that what we should be doing with everybody?
Be doing that for everybody. Because the thing, like the example that I said, like Dad is the perfect example. A door can slam, when wind catches a door can slam in this house and it scares you and I, and we go, ugh, you know, but it unnerves.
It's like someone
Dad.
set off a firecracker under his butt.
It scares him, and then he's like a little bit angry and a little bit like, what the hell? Do you know what I mean? Like, but I know that's not a personality thing. It's like in his core.
Right.
It bothers him. And so it would be kind if we were like that, right? To everybody. Mm-hmm. And I just think, yeah, like I love it that they're doing it. I hope that they don't think, I hope the whole community is welcoming to him. I think there's 1,000 lessons there to be learned to how we treat others, right? And I just hope that they don't look at Ryan as a project. I hope they look at Ryan as somebody that's bringing incredibly unique assets to their company.
I was going to say one of my big takeaways from this would be I hope there's lots of follow-up. And I'm sure we could follow him to figure it all out as well. But I hope somebody comes to us, the viewing audience of the world, and says, we took a flyer on him 4 years ago, and it was the best thing that we did. He's a workhorse. He gets through everything that we give to him. He has, blossomed in this role. We've given him more work. He's actually overseeing an element of our business. That's the stuff that we hope everybody is successful with, but in this story in particular, so that it can start really erasing stigmas about people who we think are somehow more deficient than others just because they wear it on the outside. And it would be amazing to see him be successful in a way that nobody else with his mental faculties has been given a spotlight to succeed.
It would be fabulous if Ryan was the one that opened the door for a lot of other people like himself. That would be amazing. So, because everybody wants, the letter said it all. For me, it was just the fact that he wrote that letter. And I know people who are terribly successful that could not write a letter like that with the vulnerability and the clarity that had. The letter was good enough for me.
Yeah.
If I'd had a job for Ryan, I would have offered it as well.
I say that in 1,000% being honest, that if we had any opportunity for him to do what he wanted to do and we had the financial means to provide that to him, I would have done it in a nanosecond.
Someday we will with the podcast dollars.
I know, but right now we just have to sit on them and watch them accrue.
They kind of look like Monopoly money from here.
It's all in cryptocurrencies. Yeah. So that was Deb's business segment light. Let's get into the nitty gritty of the Debs business segment, which I am super duper excited for, because like I said, if there is the most relatable topic we've talked about, it's going to be today, which is how do you work with people that you do not like? And we are human beings. We like some people, we don't like other people. Our tastes are different, but every single person, when I said we're going to talk about somebody you don't like, an image was conjured in your head, whether you're working with them today or you've already worked with them. We all know people, whether management or coworkers, who were like, I cannot believe I breathe the same air as this person every single day. How are they still employed?
Yeah. That is, so I'm going to divide it into two groups.
Please do.
So I'm going to call the one group the innocents, but they annoy the heck out of you. Okay.
Okay.
So they're not really, this isn't work performance necessarily. I mean, probably because they annoy you so much, you let some of it be, but that's you doing it, right? So I worked with a woman years and years ago.
Oh, I didn't think we were actually going to get examples. Here we go.
Oh yeah, you're going to get examples. She was so freaking bubbly. And I know that sounds terrible to say. She was so bubbly. From morning till night, it never changed. I mean, so bubbly, so happy about everything. So, I mean, you just want to yell at her.
Where's the off switch?
Yeah, exactly. And it was so annoying. And she would call, this was a day when you could get away with calling everybody honey and sweetie and dear and all of that, And I mean, no matter what you wore to work, no matter how you looked, she thought you looked adorable. I mean, you just were like, what do you want from me?
Quit trying to gas me up. I know I look like crap today, Doris.
Exactly.
That's not her. I don't know who this is.
But anyways, with that kind of person or somebody that just has, I'm just going to say an annoying habit, or somebody that's just like not your cup of tea, but they're not gaslighting you at work or really have terrible performance. I mean, I think the first thing you have to do is some serious self-reflection, right? I mean,
you figuring out why this person bothers you so much.
Exactly.
Oh, that's not the right answer. That's not the answer anybody wants to hear. They want to hear that person's in the wrong.
And I think it starts by just really looking in the mirror, do you know what I mean, and evaluating yourself.
Michael Jackson style, man in the mirror.
Yeah. Yep. Everybody should play that song at least once a month. And I think that because here's what sometimes happens in that situation. Doris bugs me. And then Doris got something. Now I'm calling her Doris.
I think everybody knows who Doris is.
And then Doris got something to me once or twice a little bit late. And then what I do is I smear Doris bugging me with that tardy thing. And the tardy thing wasn't the end of the world, right?
So now you're taking your issues with Doris, kind of the bubbly person, and using some missteps that are not individual to her as an overall condemnation of her as an employee.
And if she were a coworker that I would say was like a work friend that I genuinely liked, I would have overlooked those two tardy things.
Sure.
I mean, just as isolated incidents.
Right.
So I think there's a real problem. And I think that can go from now I'm taking issue with you. And I think it can turn into what I'm going to call, I mean, I don't know what we call it from guys, but mean girl thing. Do you know what I mean? Where now the underlying thing is that Doris has something in her personality that just simply annoys me.
Right.
Not my cup of tea, but now I've let it affect the workplace, if you will, right?
Yep.
And I'm turning the other things that Doris does into something that they're really not, okay? Then I start talking about Doris. Does everybody else have that? Or I go to find people, human nature, that I think Doris bugs too,
Sure.
right? And so all of that falls into the category of me of like kicking a puppy. It's just wrong,
Based on this totally inconsequential thing, which is Doris has this really bubbly personality that never seems to go off. And now I've internalized it to the point I'm now viewing her as a poor employee, and I'm going to now go talk smack about her with everybody else.
Yeah. And then somehow Doris ends up being wrong,
Sure.
or her performance is lacking, which really isn't the whole truth. The whole truth is I've let her annoy me to no end, right?
Yep.
So I think the first thing is self-reflection. I think the second thing is, to calm yourself down and attempt to get the emotion out of it, right? I think the other thing to do is, why don't I just meet Doris where she lives? Not that I'm going to be bubbly all day, but I think with somebody like Doris is, she is genuinely trying to spread good cheer. I mean, she's trying to do good work, right? I mean,
she was told at some point in time, How you present yourself every day is going to help you succeed in this world. So if you show up to work with a smile on your face and a bubbly personality, that's going to get you far.
That's going to get you far. So
not in Deb's world, it's not.
So maybe what I need to do with Doris is, instead of trying like avoid her and be disgusted, every time she comes over to my desk and acts like that, maybe what I need to do is walk in the morning and walk over to Doris's desk and sit down for 3 minutes and ask her how she is and let her bubble. Do you know what I mean?
But isn't everybody's worry
that Doris would then like me more and more and more?
Exactly.
I mean, there is the possibility, but I think you then have to stay in the framework of understanding that this thing in Doris is not broken. It is not wrong.
It's you.
It's you.
Gosh,
yeah.
Nobody wants to ever hear it's themselves that's the issue.
But, I think it is. And here's the one thing that I would also, so I think if I get to know Doris, I think it'll also, it'll lengthen my rope. My tolerance will change if I really genuinely get to know her. There
is something to be said, and everybody has had this experience, where you and somebody else, whether they knew it or not, were at odds with each other. You were not in a happy place. And either you or they or some outside force happened that you had a shared experience with, that you could then see them a little clearer. You could see the forest for the trees. You understood them 10% more than you did prior, which allowed you to say, they're still not perfect. They're still not coming over for the barbecue, but I can live in this new space of understanding because we had that shared experience together.
Exactly.
And that typically happens when when you make it happen, or totally unforeseen circumstance happens.
You know what it is, Kevin? On our last podcast, when you talked about Kairos, going on that school retreat, when you had your Kairos team, the leaders, you didn't look around and go, is this a cool kid? Is this my friend? Is this kid on the basketball team? You just looked at them as your team. I mean, it didn't matter what faction of the school they came from, right?
Yep.
And didn't you love and enjoy them all for different reasons?
Of course.
I mean, after that experience. And that was because you guys did exactly what you just described. So, and I think the other thing to do is be realistic. I can go find somebody, I know friends that I can call that would mostly agree with me, but if I really want true feedback, I need to call the friends that, sometimes would agree with me and sometimes go, I think you're a little on the edge here. You're kind of overreacting. And so I think that the other part is to get some feedback. And because as ridiculous as it sounds, Doris is too bubbly. I mean, how do you even make that sound bad once you say it out loud?
Of course, you will never not sound like the jerk.
You're the mean girl all day long.
Yep.
And so I really do think getting some honest feedback, especially from somebody that maybe enjoys her, and you can say look, this is how I'm feeling. I see that you're not, help me with this. And they may have some insight to it. So I also think when you talk about it out loud, you get it out of your brain and you get it off of that negative cycle, because that's your negative loop, right?
Would you also recommend just screaming into a pillow before you go to work every day so that you don't scream at
if it helps,
Doris?
If it helps.
Okay.
And then the other thing I think is really trying hard to, when I listen to Doris, because when there's somebody like that annoys you, I find that all I'm thinking about is how she annoys me.
Yep.
And I'm watching the way her mouth moves and her body language and all of it, right? And the giggling and the, and if I stop that and I really just active listen, so I'm an active listener and I'm listening to her words and possibly what her intention is, then I think that I don't pay attention to those other things. And so I think that's the other part. I think that's all good advice for the people that are not bad people, but that just annoy us because they exist.
So we have Doris as the example of there's just something about an individual that annoys us that's not really indicative of them as a coworker.
Right.
And that typically lies with us, and that's something that we need to get over.
Right.
What's another example?
Okay. So somebody that we really don't like.
Straight up.
And for good reason.
Got it. We have evidence about this person being worthy of us not liking them.
So it could be, and I think in the workplace, this is what it looks like. It looks like somebody that is just, I'm going to say, oddly competitive with you in a weird way that feels kind of threatening.
Yep.
I think it's somebody that is an obvious kiss ass. Do you know what I mean? Like that is hard for everybody,
Yep.
right? I think the person that takes credit for work that they maybe didn't do by themselves or that you had a big hand in, do you know what I mean? Or it could even be your work,
Yep.
right? I think people that lie about what's going on, I mean, that's a thing. I think for people that misrepresent the facts and that gossip and kind of try to shore up teams, if you will,
Yep.
when something is really just between you and them and you probably need to talk about it.
Yep.
So I think those kind of things, I mean, cause us to genuinely not like people. And I think the difference between Doris and this other group is that my trust was never eroded with Doris, ever.
Right.
I mean,
If anything, it was you yourself who eroded it with Doris. Nothing Doris did.
no, I mean, as far as like, if somebody would have said like, do you trust Doris to do this? Do you trust, it would probably be yes all day.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the foundation of our relationship, which the foundation of most relationships is trust. I think the foundation of our relationship was always good. Therefore, it was always going to be an easier fix. So I think it's really hard when, you know, people, I'm going to say, have been scoundrels a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in those cases, there is trust has been broken. If you did have trust, and it's even worse if trust has been broken, because think about it, like, especially if that person had been in your circle or if that person had been your friend, or you really felt like, you know, you were symbiotic and, you know, and then for some reason it gets weirdly competitive, or you're being dismissed in a way that you're not included anymore where you were, or that person takes credit for your work, you know, whatever it might be, right? You're not only dealing with that thing that they did, they took credit for my work, but now trust is being eroded, which I think when trust is eroded, I think there's a couple things that happen. And I think one of them we don't talk about. I think we get our feelings hurt.
Of course.
I think we often get angry.
Yep.
But what I think we don't talk about is that it also breaks our heart a little bit.
Especially if you thought you had a bond initially,
Yes,
even if it's
yes.
simply professionally.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I think the thing we don't address is our broken heart. And I think the broken heart is the thing that makes it all linger longer and last. Because if somebody really hurt my feelings, and I had a situation this week where somebody really hurt my feelings, and I came to you, and well, first of all, the person that told me the information, I said, you don't get to get off the phone because you have to listen to me now vent for 30 minutes. But I came home to you and I told you, and your reaction was just perfect for what I needed. Do you know what I mean? It was like you took up my side. Do you know what I mean? You took up my banner, you know, said how wrong you thought it was, right? And somewhere along the line, I was, you know, at that point, you call in your closest friends, you know, that will support you, right? And not just, I mean, I was willing for somebody to say, you know, Deb, maybe you should look at it differently, but this was not that kind of
Sure.
thing. It was black and white wrong.
But you're still leaning on your friends the same way that we did with Doris, which was, hey, let me run this by you to see if this is a me thing. But this time you're saying, I need to tell you this because I know it's not a me thing and I need to vent and I just need you to now support me.
Right. Exactly. And so then what do you need to do to get through that thing is what it is. But I think the thing we don't pay enough attention to is that little grief piece of it.
Got
right.
it.
And so
that we hurt, that
we
in
hurt.
that moment, it
Yep.
hurts us emotionally because we thought we had something that was tangible, that was real, and that was going to be mutually beneficial to both of our careers moving forward. And by no fault of our own was that severed out of nowhere, and that hurts us because we are still human beings.
Right. And then disappointment and all sorts of things are attached to that. So the one thing that I would say is, I mean, if we're talking, like, I think one of the biggest ones would be somebody taking credit for your work.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that just feels like betrayal, right? I mean,
For sure.
Broken trust, all of that.
But I feel like I would go at somebody if they took, if I fortunately don't have coworkers, but if somebody said like, hey, Jim did a bang up job on this report and like my fingerprints were all over it, the first thing I'd do is I'd go to my manager, Carl, And I'd say, hey, Big Carl, Jim didn't do a damn thing with this report. I did it.
So I do recommend that, but it's kind of not in that order.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go back to the self-reflecting, meaning you and Jim are friends, right?
Got
Jim
it.
took credit for it.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, dude.
I even had a nickname for him. It was J-Dog.
J-Dog. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, J-Dog took ownership of my work.
He took ownership of your work. And so then you say, hey, J-Dog, right? I mean, like,
what's up?
The first thing is to talk to J-Dog.
Yeah,
What's
I
up?
say, homie, what are we doing here? You know that this was my work, and now you're going to Big C saying it was yours.
So that would be the first thing you do. After you gather yourself for a minute in the self-reflection department.
I have a lot of nicknames for my fake
for your fake
coworkers.
coworkers.
Yeah.
And then I do think the thing is, I mean, before that is to calm yourself, to keep, and he may even have a reason that he said he did it, which he doesn't think is going to hurt you, but it's going to benefit him. Do you mean, which is, I think I think that goes on a lot, where they think they need the benefit of the thing.
Got it.
And they don't think the harm is very much.
So you're saying I shouldn't go to Carl first. I should sit down and talk to Jim, who I'm taking his nickname back.
Yeah.
And say, why did we do this?
Why didn't you just say Kevin and I? Right? Or if it was yours,
right.
Then you really misrepresented it. And then I think the same thing applies. I think I think understanding the person, I mean, you know him. If you know he's kind of insecure, if you know he's feeling behind the 8 ball, whatever that is, you're going to take that into consideration because you have been his friend. And then I think, let's say, you and Jim and Roy are all buddies, right?
Is Roy a new guy?
No, Roy's just part of the group, but not part of this thing.
I call him Roy the boy toy.
Roy the boy toy.
Yeah.
And so, you could go out to lunch with Roy and go, am I making too big of a deal of this? I mean, get some input from Roy,
yeah.
right?
I call him RBT too.
Which is, is anybody going to be able to track this after all this?
I love giving nicknames. And right now what we're doing is I'm sitting down with Roy. I'm also sitting down with Carl, and we're having a conversation about why Jim did this.
Okay.
Right?
You're not with Carl yet.
Oh, who are we with?
You're only with Roy right now.
I'm talking to Roy about what Jim did to better understand it from a third party's perspective.
Exactly.
I might have got lost in the nicknames.
Then the next is one-on-one with
Carl.
No.
Damn it, Jim.
Okay.
I just want to go to Carl.
Because you have to say, Jim, look, I got to know your reason behind not mentioning me.
Got it.
And was it an outright lie or was it just a partial lie, right? Meaning outright, meaning his fingers weren't on it at all.
Yeah.
Or partial, meaning you did it together.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
And so I think that's the place where you have to be able to express to him, like, I want credit too. I want this to be inclusive, right?
And what type of response or lack of response allows me to go to Carl?
So I think where you get to Carl is when Jim just says, hey, listen, I think I did way more work than you. I think that I needed this more than you. I mean, he's rationalized his storyline, right, in his head, and he's not going to give you credit.
Okay.
And then I think you have to decide, the politics of your company. You have to decide if it's wise to go do that, right? And I think, in some cases it would be something like, Carl is walking by and you say, hey, Carl, could you come here for a sec? So you're not making it a big deal, right? And say, just so you know, I did about 50% of the work on that too. I just want you to know, if you're curious what part I did, be happy to share with you. But it was a project for both Jim and I, right? And he forgot to mention me. So you're not really tattling on him per se. If you, but that's knowing Carl and how Carl receives this kind of information. If you know that Carl is really trustworthy and that you could go into Carl and just say, this is not a big deal. We do not need to talk to him because I already have, but this isn't sitting well with me. And I just want to share this with you, right? I mean, that would be a boss you could trust that could hear that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not make it into a big deal. And hopefully Carl would say something like, gosh, I'm glad you let me know. I mean, if you did half of it, I want to know that for sure. And like, is there anything I need to do with you and Jim? I mean, and you would hopefully say, no, we're good. I mean, not that you're good because we don't trust him, but Carl can't fix that.
So in this particular circumstance, let me just kind of summarize it. If somebody takes ownership of work that you either did in tandem or work that you did together, you need to kind of come to grips and emotionally calm yourself, talk to a third party about it, bounce that idea off them, make sure where you're at is the right place to be at. Then you don't go over their head, you talk to them directly. And then if you still feel that some attention needs to be paid to it in a non kind of goading, selfish way, but you still want your superior to understand that you were a central figure in this thing getting done, then you go talk to them without it being a big issue, and you acknowledge that you already spoke to the other party.
Yes. So here is the thing. Kevin, good job listening, by the way.
Thank you. I definitely got lost with the nicknames, but I got us right back on track.
Okay, good man. So I think the most important thing, and the reason that we start with the calm and self-reflection, is because what we're trying to do is really dilute any kind of hot emotion, right? Because when you go and talk to your friend, and I'm not talking about talking to 42 coworkers, I'm talking one trusted confidant, right? To get perspective on it. Because if you go to everybody, then that's just gossip and that creates something else. Do you know what I mean?
You are now adding fuel to the fire.
Exactly. So the one thing you want to be able to do is tell it from an objective perspective. So how you felt isn't key. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So you saying, gosh, I got mad, or gosh, that hurt my feelings, or that was, what a loser he is. I mean, emotions about him or you should not be part of it. It just has to be, because that's all the subjective stuff.
This is what happened.
This is what happened.
This is why I'm talking to you about it, because I want the same type of accolades, and I want my work to be praised as much as his was.
And this is the truth.
Yep.
The truth. I mean, I find so often that the truth will actually win for us. I had a person that I was working with at one time, and there was I won't go into detail, but there was a thing of like forming a group, like a little company kind of thing.
Like a boy band?
Like a boy band.
Okay.
And I felt...
Never mentioned that to me.
I felt like one other person should have been part of the boy band, and said that.
Yep.
And I articulated at the time. Mm-hmm. And I said, I think, in fact, if we don't make Justin part of the boy band.
Ooh, shout out JT.
If we don't make him part of the boy band, it's going to be a problem, not for me, but for you down the road. So the boy band gets going. Mm-hmm. Fast forward like a year and a half or something, and Justin finds out that he's not part of the boy band.
That this boy band that he should have been a part of was formed without him, and there is success there. The charts are being topped, the hair is being bleached, the puka shells are being worn, and JT finds out he's not a part of this.
The original person calls me and says, "You've got to help me. Justin knows." Ugh. And basically, outright asked me to lie for them. And I said, I'm not going to lie. I think we can fix this by telling the truth. And it was really hard for that person to see. Didn't want to trust. Now he's putting it in my hands.
Didn't want to trust the truth was the best option.
Didn't want to trust that the truth was the best option. In the end, guess what? Justin got to be in the boy band. Justin was happy. Justin didn't think anything nefarious had happened to him, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody's plates looked clean. And we were able to do it without a bunch of layers and layers of lies. And so it's like what happens in those situations is you have to take accountability, right? And what that person didn't want to do was take accountability. But taking accountability was the only thing that was going to fix it.
Put a big fat bow on working with people you don't like. Because this topic we should actually come back to, because I think there are other roads that we can go down. But I want you to kind of summarize it a little bit for us, and then we will 1,000% do a 2.0 of this.
So if there's something that just annoys you, they irritate you, and it's really not work performance related to you that way, you should be the hardest. You should work so hard to solve it, and it's within you to do it, pure and simple. If it's something that somebody's really undermining you or being cruel or unkind, all of those kind of things, then, those people exist. And I think the best thing we can do is kind of go through the format that we talked about, calm, self-reflection, addressing it. I will say this, though. One of the things that Brene Brown, and I do love Brene Brown, one of the things that she says all the time is when people have proven themselves to be not trustworthy, right? don't trust them. I mean, so I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, you've got to know that even though somebody has been trustworthy in the past, if they start not being that anymore, you have to acknowledge, at least to yourself, that trust has been eroded, and you've got to be more protective of yourself, right? Not keep engaging the way you were. So I think that's the important part. And then I just think like there's some people that are mean. And if it falls into, some kind of harassment or hostile work environment, every company has an outlet for that to be handled the way it should be handled. But nobody should be completely miserable going to work every day because of their coworkers or their bosses. And everybody's laughing as I said that last thing because they're saying I am miserable going to, it's a thing.
I love it. I think it makes sense. Like I said, I think it's the most relatable topic. We enter the workforce with the best of intentions. And the worst part is, here's the worst part. Here's the part that's going to blow your mind. Somebody thought of you when they thought of somebody they didn't want to work with.
Oh, sure.
That's what's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Which breaks my heart, but it's true.
It's true.
It's true.
And I don't mean just you. I mean the proverbial you. If you were listening to this podcast and we just talked about working with coworkers you don't like, somebody also at some point did not like working with you.
But we admitted in prior podcasts that we are not everyone's cup of tea.
Heck
that
no.
We know.
I know there's a bunch of people who would have happily fired me on the spot day one. Let's just kind of keep this business thing rolling, okay? And we're going to go head first into Dear Debbie. Again, these are not questions submitted to us. We have taken them from a different forum, but we are going to answer them the best of our ability. 2 questions are business related. One's just kind of fun. Let's get into question number 1. Dear Debbie, I'm getting sick of my friends and colleagues giving me unwanted advice. I started my own business a little while ago, and I didn't ask anyone for help because I didn't want any help. Since the early phases of starting my business, I've received a lot of advice that I didn't ask for. Most of the time, the people who offer their advice do not have their own business and have no experience dealing with the stuff that I work on. I know that they mean well, and I don't want to sound rude by rejecting their advice, but for some reason, it does offend me that people think I need it in the first place. I only need advice from people who are in a better position than me. What should I say to my friends who are constantly offering their 2 cents?
Do we know what kind of business it is?
I don't, but we can certainly slap an industry on here if you want.
I think when people are starting a business and, you share ideas, like I'm thinking about doing thus and such, right?
You put it out there in hopes that you get the response back of, that's brilliant. You should do that. Good for you.
Exactly. Well, the truth is everybody has an opinion and you've just opened the door for it, right? And
so what you kind of think is happening here is that prior to her starting the business, she told friends and family she was starting this business, which unknowing to her, opened a door of advice because she went and sought it out first.
I think more than likely that happened.
Okay.
Now, I still get unsolicited advice about Emerald City, which has been closed for how many hundreds of years.
Totally.
Right? So a business that we owned that was very, very successful and did well. So we're not worried about what our reputation was, right? People will still tell me things about Emerald City and I guess because I don't care anymore, that's not a thing.
Sure.
I go, oh, okay, what great idea. Do you know what I mean? Like not meaning that at all, right? I'm not going to bother to explain to them why it wouldn't work. I do think that people, when they give this kind of advice, I think you have to look at their intention. I think the most part people are trying to save you from heartache or money loss or failure, right?
So I think you're what you're saying, and I think we've talked about this before, but what you're saying is this individual is putting a negative spin on it.
Right.
When what they should be saying it to themselves is, look at all these people who are trying to help.
And why not just say, even if somebody suggests the most ridiculous thing, I think, we used to have new employees that would come in to Emerald City, and might be 18 or 19 years old, and they're going to suddenly tell me how to run a business,
sure.
Right?
Yep.
And, I think I was good about taking the time to pull them aside and say, hey, listen, we've tried that before. Here's how it went for us, but it doesn't mean that we can't look at it again, but we're not going to look at it right now. So I would kind of give them the explanation for it, right? So I think you either do that of like, actually, we've kind of test marketed that. That's not going to work, but thanks for thinking of us, right?
Yeah.
You either go into that explanation, or I think you just say, thanks, I'll consider that. What a nice idea. I mean, and blow it off. I just don't think that you can be, I mean, businesses are like babies. Nobody wants somebody to say, your baby's nose is a little crooked, right? No one wants to hear that because it's your baby.
Right.
But that's what it feels like. A business is your baby too, right? And especially if you've started it. So I understand, I'm going to say her sensitivity, but I also think she's doing the broad brush, everybody, do you know what I mean? And that she could just, this wouldn't even sit on her shoulders if she would just politely brush it off with them in a nice way.
And you establish a rapport with everybody that I hear that, but I'm not going to do anything about it. So without saying anything, you're letting them know that there's no longer a need for those opinions, but you're handling it in a really nice way.
Yeah.
I can get behind that. Question number 2. Dear Debbie, this will be my second time going on a business trip for my company. There are 5 of us who will be traveling and staying together in one house, and I am not looking forward to it. Last year when we did this, my boss was way too demanding. She wanted all of us to eat together every day. Sometimes that was okay, but other times I just wanted time to myself. She thought nothing of calling meetings late at night since we were together. There seemed to be no boundaries. I want to have more space this time, but I don't want to offend my boss. This may not seem like a big deal, but we work 12-hour days regularly. When we were away last year, my boss acted like we were on the clock 24 hours a day. We are not being paid for that time. I need personal time even when I'm working hard. I am not a slacker. I give my all, but I need time off too. What can I say or do to protect myself?
Well, I am terribly sympathetic to that person because I know when I travel, in fact, I say to clients, and if I'm traveling for 3 days, they're going to get me for 12 hours probably if they want, right? And, but I always say, I need a couple hours at night to unwind. And that's like be alone in a hotel room.
Sure.
Right? Yep. And I need 8 hours sleep. That's what I say, And I can get up early, but those are the parameters. I need a couple hours to unwind and I need 8 hours sleep. And because people will take advantage where now for me, working on traveling across the country and then working on 6 hours of sleep several nights in a row is just too much.
Totally.
They're not going to get the best piece of me. So I remember when you traveled for Dinner Lab, you guys always stayed in Airbnbs.
Yep.
And I remember thinking that was just fraught with so much potential danger.
Sure.
And
from an HR standpoint.
And I do think if, let's assume in this instance that everybody has at least their own bedroom, do you know what I mean, to stay in. So she does have a private area, right? I think I would just go up to the boss, and I'm not going to say that this is easy, do you know what I mean? But I think I would say something like this. Look, I'm all about long days. We normally work 12 hours a day anyways. But for me, if I don't have a couple of hours alone at night to unwind and then 8 hours of good sleep, I am not myself. So I'm just letting you know, I'm calling it for myself at like 9 o'clock or, whatever the time would be. And I'm going to my room just so I can decompress so I can be my best for tomorrow. Because I don't think there's much that you can say about that. If you're the boss, I don't think you say, well, no, I need you up until 11 o'clock every night. Right. And I think when you do that, probably 4 other people are relieved and are right behind you, saying something like that. But I think knowing yourself, knowing how you function and knowing what's required to give your best is 100% legitimate.
What if the boss says, no, I need you up till 11? Do you get to say, I can do that, but then I need 8 hours of sleep, so you'll see me again at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning? I
think you could say that, or I think you could also say, hey, listen, I'm physically capable of doing that, but you need to know that probably by day 3 of this event, I'm going to be beleaguered. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to be really tired.
I view that
I'm
as...
not going to be able to bring my best self forward.
Everybody's had bosses where they try to get you to work or train or do whatever the way they do it because that's right for them. And I've had to say to bosses before, I appreciate that that's how you learn or that's how you work. That's not how I work.
Right.
And I think that's really hard to say, but also I think it's really empowering because it acknowledges that that's how it works for them and that's very successful for them. But for you, you're standing up for yourself, which is great, but then you're also letting them know, I always get the work done, right? Right. But I can't do it this way if you want the best product when it's all said and done.
And I think that you've also got to weigh and measure. So let's say, she said there were 5 people, right?
Correct.
So 4 employees and the boss. You know, I think what happens on work things, there's lots of like fun chatter, you know, that has nothing to do with work, but it's tightly woven with work stuff too. So you're in and out of it. You're in and out of the work personal thing in the conversations after work.
Totally.
And so if you picture, you know, 2 or 3 of the employees and the boss sitting having wine at the dining room table, and it's like half talking about fashion and half talking about work, right? You know, there's that thing of where I don't want to miss that, right? I want to be in on it. But, you know, if you're focusing only on the work part, you don't really get to control that piece of the conversation.
True.
And then do you not want to be part of that? Because that just stuff falls into team building and fun and, do you know what I mean? Getting to know your coworkers better. But I think if you really need the rest, I need to decompress.
Totally.
I mean, you and I both do it every night. We go to bed at a certain time and we don't go to sleep, right? I mean, and so I think knowing what you need so that you can be your best, it's a boundary. You just have to set it.
Yeah. Treat us like our guy, Ryan.
There you go.
Last question. Dear Debbie, I received a gift for the holidays that I am not happy about in the slightest. As part of a workplace secret Santa exchange, a coworker purchased me a pair of extra large spandex shorts and said they hope they fit. I clearly do not need that size, and it was given to me without a gift receipt. Additionally, skimpy shorts are not a funny gift to give a coworker. I do go to the gym after work sometimes, so this may be where the inspiration for the spandex came from. I'm pretty annoyed about this present because it's about 4 sizes too big and I will never be able to use it, so it's useless, and everyone at the office laughed at me. I am debating never bringing up the shorts again or going along with everyone's jokes. Should I give this workplace clown the satisfaction of being offended by his gift?
Oh, it sounds like she knows who gave her the gift.
Yeah, not so secret.
Not so secret. Well, kind of sounds like the crazy uncle that I sided with before.
There's a theme
There's
to the third question,
Yeah,
and it's usually who's trying to be funny and who's a stick in the mud.
So there was a work thing, gosh, what was it? Where there had been some joke about the guys about wearing boxers or tighty whities. And then there was the Christmas, crazy gift. And this one guy had firmly tighty whitey. Do you know what I mean? Like that. And whoever had got his name it was like the tighty whities were 2 feet long in the waistband. Do you know what I mean? They were the biggest tighty whities. He opened them and everybody died, including him. Do you know what I mean? It was.
Did you write this?
No.
Did you know about this?
No. I mean, well, the guy that got them, and then they got passed around. Do you know what I mean? So in that instance, everybody got the joke. If their 4 sizes too small, she clearly doesn't have a big weight issue.
Too big.
Right. Or 4 sizes too big. She clearly does. It's not like somebody made fun of a heavy set girl. That
Correct.
didn't happen. Right. And so I've got to believe it wasn't a practical gift. It was a joke gift. Right.
Clearly.
But she wasn't in on the joke. Or she didn't think it was funny. But I think you can't go, I don't know. I just think you run a big risk of being the sourpuss on that.
I was going to say, if this is a familial thing, it's totally different. I think we've well established that somebody's trying to be funny. If it's not funny to you, that's okay. But don't be a jerk about it.
Yeah.
Somebody made an effort and it just fell flat. The professional side of this can be a little dicey when you're the gift giver.
Right.
There is an edge to it. There is a line that exists now. And especially giving a gift to a woman that could be seen as weight related in this climate.
Pretty iffy.
Might not be the best thing in the world.
So I think one of the things, especially when a guy gives a girl a gift like that, there's one thing I think it's in poor taste for sure.
1,000%.
Okay. And he should be smacked upside the head by somebody.
Yeah.
Right. But I also think it's women in the workplace, and I think I'm going to have half of the women in the world jump on me and half of the women not. It's like, do you that moment in a party, become Debbie Downer? And I mean, there are people that would say yes. I mean, he was an asshole. You should, right? But then I know for me, it's like, I don't want to give him anything, but I don't want to ruin it for everybody else.
Sure.
That's how I feel. Okay?
But there's a happy medium, right?
Well, here's what I think the happy medium is. I think the happy medium is she grabs those big old shorts, she pulls them on, do you mean like as a joke? And then she takes them off and throws them at him and says, you owe me another gift or something like that. Do you know what I mean? In a cute, clever, lighthearted way. And I know there's a bunch of women out there that are going, but why do we have to do that when he was a jerk? The truth is, I don't know if he was a jerk or if he's just thoughtless. And what I don't, I just err on, I don't want to ruin it for everybody. And in that moment, everybody's looking at you, open the gift, right? So
I'm the real feminist. And what I would say is you walk up to him and you say, I don't know if you thought this was going to be funny. It might have been to everybody else, but I was the recipient of this gift. And in no way did I think it was funny. I don't need to make a big deal about it, but understand that giving a woman a gift that might be reflective of their weight, even though it clearly doesn't fit me,
right,
is never in good taste.
No, I agree. And I think, and if you could take that message and do it, and I just want to say a little bit, to teach him a lesson, obviously, because you're educating him, right? But keep the party light.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Totally.
I think that's the best answer. A part of me wants to take them and just go put them on his head and tie the legs together, right? And do that as I'm saying all of that.
Yep.
But I think you've got to be really careful when it's gifting both ways, male and female.
Love it. Deb, been very business heavy this podcast. Let's focus a little bit more on the personal and let's talk about what you are thankful for this week.
Well, my thankful is going to back right up to dinner. Are you okay with that?
You're going to back right up to dinner with the thankful. That makes sense because dinner typically comes after thankful.
Okay. So, our friends, Beth and Lauren, showed up at our house for no good reason except to bring us this enormous basket.
Not like we're upset by that.
Oh, no.
It's not like they were uninvited and they showed up.
We were happy.
Totally.
But it was somewhat of a surprise.
Correct.
And this beautiful basket, which I made you take a picture of, that was filled with all this fresh food. And she had bought us Joanna Gaines' new cookbook.
Yep.
And one of her favorite recipes she marked, and she'd purchased all the ingredients for the recipe in the basket. I mean, it was just beautiful, like different colored carrots with their tops coming off, and bought the best cut of meat for this. So the cookbook with a recipe that she's used.
With all the food.
Felt like the nicest gift in the world. So tonight so now I'll do dinner, okay? Tonight we're making Joanna Gaines beef stew via my friend Beth, and we're making jalapeno cornbread.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Beth and Lauren.
Uber Eats Beth.
Yes.
Beth
Uber Eats Beth. Beth Eats.
Beth Hub. Beth. What are the other ones?
I don't know. You've got to give Lauren some credit.
DoorDash Beth. Yeah, maybe it's Lauren Uber Beth because Lauren drove, Beth delivered it.
Yes, there you go. But it was, I'm telling you, I will steal this idea. I now recommend this. Buying your favorite cookbook, taking one of your favorite recipes out of it, and then buying all the ingredients for that recipe for your friend. Oh my gosh. Better than a pan of lasagna.
Love that. Love that we got a thankful and a dinner all in the same monologue.
There you go.
I'm thankful. If you listen to the Thursday podcast, I'm clearly thankful for my vaccine. I have wonderful friends who will all be receiving the vaccine relatively soon. I was able to spend some time with them last night, and it was just great to be around people who have been fully vaccinated, partially vaccinated, are anticipating getting vaccinated soon, because it feels like my world is slowly opening back up. And like I said, I feel like a caged animal. I feel like I was a feral cat. I was taken in. I was getting used to these new four walls. And then the zookeeper was like, no, buddy, we're going to let you go. We just got to ease you into it. So through this entire process, I feel like I'm slowly taking baby steps to get back into the new norm. And it feels good because it's at a nice, appropriate pace for me. And I'm happy to be sharing that experience with all of my friends and you guys.
Well, and then just as a tidbit, so then people next week can find out, I am getting on a plane Monday at noon. Think good thoughts for me.
That's true.
Yeah.
Cross all of our legs and fingers that everything goes swimmingly well as Deb ventures back into the world.
And that I don't rip the mask off screaming,
she's going to be
on for too long.
If that does happen, we'll probably see it go viral as another white woman causes a plane to divert. That's going to do it for us on the Deb and Kev podcast this Monday. Make sure to like, rate, and review wherever you listen to this podcast. And you can follow us on all of our social channels at Deb and Kev Pod. And if you so choose, you can watch our hilarious laughter of this episode on our YouTube channel at Deb and Kev Pod. Mom, anything else?
I think I'm good.
I love you to death.
I love you.
We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Thank you for listening to the Deb and Kev podcast. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. Follow Deb and Kev on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter at Deb and Kev Pod.